Welcome back to Shadow Warefare, the channel where we explore Zoe's spiritual warfare, biblical wisdom, and the mysteries that have fascinated believers for generations. Here we examine topics through the lens of faith while encouraging discernment, wisdom, and a deeper relationship with God. Today's message explores a question that many people have quietly asked themselves: why do I sometimes think I see shadows moving in the corner of my eye? Some people describe these experiences as spiritual, others as psychological, and still others as ordinary visual phenomena. In this message, we'll explore how some former occult practitioners and Christians interpret these experiences, while remembering that unusual visual experiences can also have intellectual explanations and should not automatically be assumed to have a supernatural cause. Before we begin, if you believe that wisdom comes from seeking truth with both faith and discernment, type "Walk in the Light" in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Shadow Warefare, and stay with us until the end. Have you ever been sitting alone in a quiet room when something catches your attention? For just a brief moment, you think you see movement in the corner of your eye. You turn your head. Nothing is there. Perhaps it happens again days later. Or perhaps it only happens once every few months. Experiences like these have led many people to ask difficult questions. Was it simply a trick of the eyes? Was it caused by stress or fatigue? Was it my imagination? Or was there something more? Throughout history, people from many different cultures have shared stories about unexplained experiences. Some have interpreted them as spiritual encounters. Others have understood them through science, psychology, or the way human vision naturally works. Our peripheral vision is remarkably sensitive to movement, but it is also less detailed than our central vision. Because of this, shadows, changing light, tired eyes, stress, or even ordinary objects can sometimes appear to move when they have not moved at all. Knowing this is important because wisdom begins with avoiding quick conclusions. Not every unusual experience has a supernatural explanation. At the same time, many believers also recognize that Scripture teaches there is a spiritual dimension to life. For that reason, Christians are encouraged to remain spiritually alert without becoming consumed by fear or assuming every unexplained event has the same cause. Fear has an interesting way of changing perception. When people become anxious, they often begin noticing every creak in the floor, every shifting shadow, every unexpected sound. The mind naturally searches for explanations. Sometimes those explanations are accurate. Sometimes they are not. This is why discernment is so valuable. Discernment encourages patience instead of panic. It encourages wisdom instead of speculation. It reminds us not to build conclusions on assumptions. One of the greatest mistakes people make is allowing fear to become their guide. Fear magnifies uncertainty. Fear fills empty spaces with frightening possibilities. Fear can make ordinary events seem extraordinary. Faith, on the other hand, encourages calmness. Faith reminds believers that they do not need to live in constant terror of the unknown. Whatever challenges exist in life, panic rarely produces flailin-las. Some people who have left occult practices behind have shared testimonies describing how fear played a significant role in keeping them trapped. Whether every detail of those testimonies is accurate cannot always be verified. What many of them consistently describe, however, is this: fear became a powerful influence over their decisions. Once fear controlled their thinking, it became easier to misinterpret ordinary events and harder to think clearly. That observation is valuable regardless of a person's background. Fear narrows perspective. Peace broadens it. Imagine walking through a forest at night. Every sound seems louder. Every branch appears suspicious. Every shadow appears mysterious. Now imagine walking through the same forest during daylight. The path is unchanged. The trees are unchanged. The surroundings are unchanged. Only the light has changed. Light changes perception. That principle is true in many areas of life. The more understanding we gain, the less fear dominates our thinking. The more wisdom we develop, the more carefully we evaluate unusual experiences. This does not mean ignoring genuine concerns. It means approaching them thoughtfully. Instead of immediately assuming the worst, we ask questions. Could there be a natural explanation? Am I exhausted? Have I been under unusual stress? Was the lighting unusual? Could my eyes simply have detected movement in my peripheral vision? These questions are not signs of weak faith. They are signs of wisdom. Faith and wisdom work together. Neither requires panic. For believers, prayer remains valuable regardless of the explanation. Prayer centers the heart. Prayer reminds us that peace is possible even when answers are incomplete. Prayer shifts attention away from fear and toward trust. Whether an experience has a natural explanation or remains unexplained, living in constant fear is not the answer. The goal is not to become fascinated with shadows. The goal is to walk confidently in the light. People who constantly chase mysterious experiences often become distracted from what matters most. Instead of growing in character, compassion, patience, and love, they become consumed with spiritual maturity is built through faithfulness, wisdom, humility, and discernment, not through fear of every unexplained event. So if you have ever wondered why you thought you saw movement in the corner of your eye, remember this. There may be many possible explanations. Do not rush to conclusions. Seek wisdom. Remain calm. Stay grounded. And above all, do not allow fear to become the loudest voice in your life. The strongest life is not one controlled by anxiety about the unknown. It is one guided by truth, discernment, hope, and faith. As we go even deeper into this conversation, let us ask another important question. Why do so many people remember the frightening moments of life more vividly than the peaceful ones? The answer lies partly in the way the human mind is designed. Our brains naturally pay close attention to anything that might represent danger. Throughout history, this ability has helped human beings survive. It causes us to notice sudden movement, unexpected sounds, unfamiliar situations, and anything that appears unusual. This response is not a sign that something supernatural is happening. It is part of how people naturally perceive the world. Understanding this truth can help us approach unusual instead of fear. Imagine walking through your home late at night. The lights are off. Only a small amount of moonlight enters through the windows. Your eyes are adjusting to the darkness. A coat hanging on a chair suddenly looks like a person. A tree branch moving outside casts a shadow across the wall. A passing car causes light to move across the ceiling. For a brief moment your heart races. Then you switch on the light. Immediately you realize there was nothing to fear. How many times has that happened in life? How many fears disappeared the moment more light entered the situation? This principle applies far beyond physical light. Knowledge brings light. Truth brings light. Understanding brings light. The more clearly we see reality, the less room fear has to grow. This is why many believers emphasize spending time in prayer and studying Scripture, not because every mystery will instantly disappear, but because a heart grounded in truth is less easily shaken by uncertainty. There are also times when life becomes emotionally exhausting. Stress builds. Sleep becomes difficult. Responsibilities increase. The mind becomes overwhelmed. During seasons like these, people may notice things they would normally ignore. Fatigue can influence concentration. Stress can influence perception. This is another reason not to rush to supernatural conclusions. Taking care of our bodies, getting proper rest, managing stress, and seeking help when needed are all wise steps. Faith and wisdom are partners, not enemies. Another lesson that many former practitioners of occult tradition says that fascination with fear can become a trap. When someone becomes obsessed with horror stories, frightening videos, or constant speculation about unseen dangers, they may begin interpreting ordinary experiences through that lens. Soon every shadow appears suspicious. Every coincidence feels significant. Every unexplained event becomes frightening. The mind starts connecting unrelated events. This can create an endless cycle of anxiety. Instead of living with confidence, the person begins living with constant suspicion. Instead of experiencing peace, they become trapped in uncertainty. That is why many Christian teachers encourage believers to focus more on truth than on fear. The goal is not to become experts in darkness. The goal is to grow in wisdom, compassion, humility, and faith. Think about a lighthouse standing beside the sea. Storms may come. Massive waves may crash against the rocks. Dark clouds may cover the sky. Yet the lighthouse continues shining. It does not chase the storm. It simply continues producing light. What a beautiful picture that is for our own lives. We cannot control every mystery. We cannot explain every unusual experience. We cannot answer every difficult question. But we can choose to live as people who bring light instead of fear. People who offer hope instead of panic. People who encourage wisdom instead of speculation. One reason fear becomes so powerful is because it often grows in isolation. When people experience something they cannot explain, they sometimes keep it entirely to themselves. They replay the experience again and again. Each time they remember it, the story becomes more frightening. Details become exaggerated. Questions multiply. Anxiety increases. Eventually they convince themselves that the worst possible explanation must be true. This is why trusted community matters. Talking with mature believers, wise mentors, trusted friends, family members, or qualified professionals can often bring much needed perspective. Sometimes another person notices details we overlooked. Sometimes they remind us of possibilities we had not considered. Sometimes they simply offer encouragement that helps calm our fears. Wisdom is rarely developed in complete isolation. Another important truth is that not every unanswered question needs an immediate answer. Modern culture encourages instant solutions, instant information, instant explanations, but life does not always work that way. There are seasons when patience is required. There are moments when the wisest response is simply to admit, "I do not know." Surprisingly, admitting we do not know can be freeing. It removes the pressure to invent explanations. It creates space for learning. It allows humility to replace certainty where certainty does not exist. Humility is one of the strongest qualities a believer can develop. It reminds us that our understanding is limited. It keeps us from becoming overconfident. Whether discussing spiritual matters, science, relationships, or everyday life, humility keeps the heart open to truth. Another observation worth considering is how greatly our attention influences our experience. Suppose someone buys a red car. Suddenly they begin noticing red cars everywhere. Not because more red cars suddenly appeared, but because their attention has changed. The same principle can occur with mysterious experiences. If someone constantly searches for shadows, unexplained events, or frightening signs, their attention naturally becomes more sensitive to anything unusual. Again, this does not mean every experience is imagined. It simply reminds us that attention shapes awareness. This is why it is wise to intentionally focus our attention on things that build faith, wisdom, gratitude, and hope. What we feed our minds often influences how we experience the world. If fear becomes our daily diet, fear often becomes our constant companion. If wisdom becomes our daily pursuit, confidence begins to grow. If hope becomes our focus, discouragement gradually loses its influence. This is not about pretending difficulties do not exist. It is about deciding what deserves the greatest influence over our thoughts. Many people spend hours every week consuming frightening content. Then they wonder why anxiety increases. The mind absorbs what it repeatedly consumes. Just as healthy food strengthens the body, healthy thoughts strengthen the mind. Prayer plays an important role here. Prayer is more than asking for answers. Prayer creates space for reflection. Prayer slows racing thoughts. Prayer reminds believers that peace is available even when certainty is not. Prayer helps shift attention away from endless speculation and back toward trust. This quiet confidence becomes one of the greatest protections against unnecessary fear. As the years pass, many believers discover something remarkable. The older and wiser they become, the less interested they are in chasing mysterious experiences. Instead, they become deeply interested in living lives of integrity. They become committed to serving others. They value kindness over curiosity, humility over pride, faithfulness over sensationalism, love over fear. Those qualities leave lasting influence. Long after dramatic stories have been forgotten, acts of compassion continue changing lives. Words of encouragement continue strengthening hearts. Faithful service continues inspiring others. That is where true spiritual maturity shines brightest. Not in endless fascination with unexplained events, but in consistent love, wisdom, and hope. So if you have ever found yourself wondering about shadows in the corner of your eye, remember this: remain curious, but stay discerning. Remain open-minded, but avoid fear. Seek truth patiently. Consider both natural and spiritual perspectives with humility. And above all, refuse to let uncertainty steal your peace, because a peaceful heart is far stronger than an anxious imagination. A wise mind is far more valuable than a fearful one. And a life centered on truth will always shine brighter than any shadow that briefly passes through the corner of your vision.